Hi everyone, I'm Tara and this is Loving Ocean Tarot. Welcome if this is your first time here, and welcome back if you have been here before. Today I have a very interesting reading for you, which is based on the newest addition to my Oracle deck collection, which is the Wild Unknown Alchemy deck. Based on that, today we're going to be looking at what are you alchemizing? It is truly my genuine belief that each of us is an alchemist in one way or the other. It's just a matter of noticing what we're doing as that alchemist in our lives. And that's exactly what we're going to be looking into today. What are you alchemizing? What are you transforming? What are you learning from? What are you putting these different things into and getting out of the situation? Because alchemy to me is this practice of understanding duality and making this new transformed oneness from it, of bringing together material and of bringing together literally anything. We're going to go into all those details as we go into your individual readings. So I'm going to leave most of the explanation for then. So let's get into the selection. So as you can see today, I have 3 piles for you. I've already shuffled out the cards for your reading. And we also have 1 crystal each, so you can pick one from these 3 piles, or you can pick multiple if you feel drawn to multiple. Maybe you're alchemizing multiple things right now. Anything can be happening. So let me just show you each of the crystal selections that we have. So for pile 1 we have blue Chalcedony. For pile 2 we have Scolecite. And for pile 3 we have this rough Citrine. This one genuinely looks like a piece of jelly and I want to eat it. Take as much time as you need to make your selection. You can, again, like I said, make multiple selections, and the timestamps will be in the description box, so you can skip ahead to your reading. And I'll be getting started with pile number 1 for now. Hi pile number 1s. This is for those of you that chose this lovely, yummy little piece of blue Chalcedony. I'm going to put that there, and let's get into your reading. Can you see that? Yeah. Okay. So the spread for this reading is a little interesting, so bear with me as I kind of lay it out and then explain it to you. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the goal. What is the end result that you are alchemizing? And for that we have wise salt. I'm going to put that there. And then this card is for the materials that go in, and the material can be anything. It could be very literal objects that could be useful in this alchemy process. It could be a certain experience, it could be a part of yourself, it could be a chapter in your life, it could be anything. So we're going to leave that pretty open. So let's see, what are the materials going into this alchemical process? We have mystical sister. Ooh. Spinny card. Then we are going to be looking at what is the purpose of this alchemical process. And for that I'm taking the Thoth Tarot, and your card is Adjustment. And then I have 2 additional cards which are going to be giving us just some general insight into this entire process. And for that we have the World. And the last card is Judgment. Oh wow, a lot of only major arcana, to be honest. Very interesting. Honestly, even before I get into these cards, I'm going to be starting with these cards before getting into the rest of it. But I have to just take a moment to talk about how you have 3 major arcana cards here, and that is making me think of how this entire alchemical process for you is something that is extremely transformative and extremely important and significant. So the thing is, with this reading, I kept it mostly open as to what kind of alchemical process this is. Like, I feel like sometimes our life can be divided into segments and chapters where certain processes are important for one chapter, and then a different process and a different result comes through in another chapter. But because of this, I'm kind of feeling like this is the process that's going on behind the surface. There are times when it spikes up and you are more aware of it, because like that's when the progress this process is taking on is more significant for you to notice and just make use of. But even when you're not actively working on this is something that's working on behind the scenes. So even if a certain chapter of your life might have a different alchemical process, it is, how do I say this, like ultimately giving and fueling this underlying process in your life. And this almost feels like a greater, like a larger purpose, and something that you're sort of uncovering throughout your entire life. I know I started out with this card, but I want to really like go with this Mystical Sister card right here. Mystical Sister is immediately making me think of how there is somebody in your life, or I think like a big part of your life, and this alchemical process in your life has to do with community. And this community can take many forms, but I feel like this community is one that is spiritual first and foremost. And it could be spiritual again, like they could kind of more subconsciously influence your spiritual journey, or they could very kind of actively be a part of it. So for instance, if maybe you're religious, or maybe you are into something like witchcraft. I know a lot of people don't really contend with that word and that concept, so it's not something that applies to all of you by any chance. These are just like examples of what I mean. So for instance, if you're like religious, the people that you surround yourselves with who are also religious in the same way as you, they form your community. If you are into witchcraft, then you have like, say, a coven or something. Or if you are, I'm also getting this like very kind of specific and random image that keeps like coming back to my head of like nurses, and I'm thinking of people who are like working together, and how that is also a community. And let me just take like a minute to talk about that, because it could be that like maybe some of you have to do with like the medical community. Maybe you work as a doctor or a nurse, or you just work in a hospital, even like administratively. And I think hospitals are extremely powerful places because they have to do so kind of acutely with healing and with transformation and even death. And even though like if you have like a friend, if you suppose you're a nurse or you work at the hospital, and even if you don't actively talk about spirituality, just like the kind of happenings around you influence a lot of your kind of spiritual opinions as well, like on death and life and what life means. Like you get to maybe see like a lot of people saying goodbye to their loved ones or welcoming a newborn, and how that really kind of shapes your perspective on life. But yeah, like I think your community is something that is really important in this life. And what I'm also hearing is, because I talked about how this is like a lifelong process that you might be having, this is the community that you kind of piece together. This is like when you look back at your life, you don't think of your community as being this one group of people where everybody knows each other and they're all working together, like the same friend group or something. You're piecing together a community that is very specific and involves different people from different parts of your life, and they form this sort of almost metaphysical community. Like they might not be together like in the same space. Like maybe you made a friend in school, then you made a friend in university, at your job, at your gym. There's basically like these different people in different phases of your lives, or even different spaces of your lives. Like one friend you have that you go on walks with, and the other one you met at work, and one is like a cousin that you haven't talked to in years, and how like you're forming this sort of like interweaving community with people that aren't technically part of the same group. And you are here to learn so much from your relationships, and your relationships play like this big role in this final thing that you are like alchemizing. And why is salt again? Like immediately what I'm thinking of is wisdom. I remember like when I was reading like the guidebook for like for this particular card, it talked about like grit, like the grittiness of salt, like, and it gave me this like very specific imagery of like you know when you have to like clean copper. So if suppose you drink out of like a copper bottle or like a copper glass, obviously water oxidizes the copper and puts like a lot of staining on it, and to clean it what you need to do is you have to make the solution of salt and I think it's baking soda and then like water all mixed together, and you use it to like rub the copper and like clean the stains, and it's like this very kind of gritty texture, and it dries your hands, it's abrasive, but still like what you get out of it is this like shiny new copper bottle or like any like copper utensil. That's what I'm thinking of. I know it's like a very like specific image, but like stay with me here. And that grittiness is sort of making me think of like the wisdom needed to understand life better and to just be at peace with the ups and downs of life. And like look at these like major arcana cards here. We have adjustment, we have the world, we have judgment. The world again, like this is just making me think of like your life in general, and again like, you know, remember how I just talked about, you know, when at the end of your life you look back and like every single person that was important to you forms this sort of like metaphysical community that influenced you, and you see like the sphere of influence and how much you learned from everybody and how that made you who you are today, like all these different little pieces of knowledge coming together to form you. And that's what it's making me think of, like when you're saying goodbye to this world, you have this knowledge and you have this wisdom, and it all comes together and makes sense, and you see just how important all these people were. It could even be that like, you know, you have like arguments and some people you no longer interact with, or you know, you just kind of cut certain people off. At the end of everything, you're going to look back and you're going to just make sense of it all, and you're going to be able to forgive and let go and just be at like, you're going to have so much peace of mind. To be honest, like when I say so much, it doesn't even make sense, because to me like peace of mind is like a kind of absolute thing. You either have it or you don't. And yeah, you're gonna have it. You're gonna have peace of mind. And again, like this adjustment card is making me think exactly of that. Like this card talks about your purpose. Like what is the purpose of this alchemical process? And this particular card, adjustment, in the Thoth tarot, like the book of Thoth, like it just completely changed my perspective on literally everything. Like, and the meaning, like the interpretation of this card is the one that did that for me. And I remember I read that book like in 2020, and it still like sticks around with me. Like one particular line just stays with me forever, and it was when the creator of this deck said, "The law of the universe is neither good nor bad, it is exact." That shit just stuck with me so hard, and it kind of just gave me like this perspective of everything just makes so much sense, and I feel like you're gonna get this peace of mind too. So the thing is, like, even though like that line stuck with me, I still haven't been able to fully like settle it into my soul yet, because things still bother me. I can't look at things as just this, like, with a neutral perspective and being just completely accepting, because I don't know, it's kind of like this, it is what it is, you know, it's neither good nor bad, it just is. And I feel like that's what you're going to be able to achieve. Like, you're going to be able to settle it into your soul that things just are the way they are, and everything has its place, everything has its purpose, everything has its reason, and everything is part of the wisdom that you are acquiring. With this Judgment card here as well, like, I'm particularly drawn to, like, how there's like a lot of people sort of waking up here in this card, and that's making me think of, again, like, community. Because usually, like, when I think of the Judgment card, I don't really put in like a lot of emphasis towards the number of people here, but right now, because I'm drawn to that, I'm kind of thinking that, like, this journey is something that you're taking with a lot of people with you. And I feel like your entire this is like kind of like a specific message, but maybe you're somebody that grew up kind of individualistic. To be honest, I feel like because this is such like a long process, this is like the underlying learning and alchemical process of your life. It could even be that right now you are in this sort of individualistic mindset of like, hey, I need to like look out for myself, I need to protect myself, I need to make wealth for myself, you know, that kind of thing. Could even be that you have phases with it, you know. And first off, don't feel bad about that, because remember how we talked about how this process, this alchemical process that is like kind of the underlying current of your entire life, sometimes flares up when you need it and when it's like significant. So that's what it's making me think of. Like, even if you have phases where you suddenly get like really individualistic and you feel disconnected, those are like I don't know how to say it, like, not tests or challenges, but like, let's say it this way, like, straying off the path is just another opportunity to find your way back. Ooh, that's kind of cute, I like that. But yeah, like, so even if you find yourself straying off the path, don't kind of feel bad about it, because it's literally an opportunity for you to come back. It's almost like you're going out and you're like gathering more salt, more water, more baking powder to like come back and keep scrubbing at this like this copper vessel in your hands. I don't know why I'm saying like copper so much, because like copper is actually like one of the materials in this deck, and it's not out here, but I'm thinking about it. Maybe that's like a specific message, maybe because like you know how to like relate to this. Maybe you are into like metals, and maybe you are interested in metals, maybe you actually drink out of copper bottles or eat out of copper vessels or something like that. So maybe that is helping you understand this message that's coming through. But yeah, like, coming back to this Judgment card, this is making me think of like how you might have periods where you are individualistic, but at the end of the day, because like such a big part of your alchemical process is looking back and seeing the significance of people that have given you wisdom in life, you're going to be like making this journey with like a lot of people as well. So it's almost like throughout your life, like a big recurring theme that you might see is that people from the past keep popping back in. And I'm not, okay, now let me be very clear, I'm not talking about people that are, I'm not talking about people who have been toxic, that you have been like, I'm going zero contact with this person means no good to me. I'm not talking about those people. It could be that one of those comes back and apologizes, and if they're genuine, you forgive them and then you just move on. But I feel more like, you know, sometimes you make friends and then you just drift apart. Like, you have a childhood friend, or like a friend you met on a cruise ship, and you were with them for like one day, and then you never talked to them again because you were 9 and nobody had phones or email IDs or anything. That's what it's making me think of, like rediscovering people, rediscovering relationships, and you come back together and you come back with the wisdom that each of you have sort of gathered, and then you put it together and you make something newer. And that is literally the alchemical process of taking these separate things, putting them together and getting this new transformed thing at the end of the day that is purified and a better version of what it once was. It's also making me think of how, like, there might be certain relationships in your life that, like, didn't work out because it wasn't, like, the right time. And it could even be, like, with mystical sister, like, it could be, like, a literal sister that you know, like how some people, like, go no contact with their families, or, like, maybe since you had to leave the house early because of, like, a not so great situation, you had to leave a sibling behind, or maybe you were the sibling that was left behind, and how then after some time you sort of reconnect and you're able to see things with, like, a whole new perspective. What's really interesting is that I'm really kind of getting this whole new perspective vibe here, and I feel like that's sort of there in each of these cards, like in each of these 3 cards specifically, because the world, like, especially, like, with the kind of interpretation that we're going with, like, you at the end of the day looking back and realizing how different things are, that's literally, like, this new perspective sort of dawning on you. And with, like, the adjustment card as well, when you sort of realize that everything just is the way it is, and that nothing that happened was either good or bad, it just happened, and you're sort of able to make peace with your life and the experiences that you've had. And even judgment being, like, this light dawning on you, that you're being almost, like, awakened to something so different, so new, so refreshing, and so significant and important. And it literally, like, feels like rebirth to me. And how you are somebody that is consistently, like, being born again. And you might not even notice this. Like, I know we're all, like, meant to go through changes in life. Like, we are essentially, like, changing beings. We change with time, we age, we grow out of likes and dislikes. Like, everything in our bodies is geared towards change. But there is just something about your change in particular that is so transformative. Oh my god, look at that. Like, just this flame, like, light dawning. Like, you know, you're in this dark room and suddenly somebody just, like, lights a match, and there's, like, illumination all over. Also, I'm hearing, like, with this, like, the phrase, like, moth to a flame, and that's making me think of, like, how if the flame is one of change and transformation, you are the moth drawn to that. You are the being drawn to change and transformation. And that's what wisdom is about. Wisdom is about changing. Nobody who is wise wishes to stay stagnant. So things like stubbornness, or not wanting to change your ways, or not wanting to understand different perspectives, these are all attributes of people who are resisting knowledge and who are resisting wisdom. I'm not going to say that they're not wise, because I feel like each of us is capable of wisdom and is often conditioned to resist it because of how much change it brings. Because, like, with wisdom, you kind of, the entire system gets thrown off, you know. Like, suppose you're brought up in a family that is very, like, orthodox and very they want you to act a certain way. So you kind of gathering wisdom in a place like that means that you see that this authority that somebody has over you makes no sense, or the way that they want you to act is so inauthentic. And it's knowledge and wisdom that let you have those opinions, and you acquire more of that. You either rebel or you leave, right? And people don't want rebellion. People don't want to break the status quo. People don't want to break the routineness and comfort that stagnation bring. But you're someone that's drawn to it, and it's because learning and acquiring wisdom is a big part of who you are. I feel like even you're somebody that, again, like with this example that I gave of, like, an orthodox and authoritative family, maybe you grew up in that kind of space, and for you to kind of reconnect with this part of you that is inquisitive and curious and looks around with hungry eyes, wanting to learn about the world, you had to shut that part of yourself. And the minute it got activated, you were like, yes, this is what life is about. I'm gonna spend my entire life doing this. And even though there's times when that kind of authoritative background might come back into your life and just keep you stagnant again, or, okay, so here's the thing. Initially, remember when I talked about how there might be times when you become kind of individualistic? So here's the thing. Somebody who was brought up in this kind of authoritative setting, they want to escape that, right? Especially if like they have this kind of innate want to escape. So they want to stay escaping that kind of situation. And often to do that, you need to rebel. You need to go against the grain. You need to be against the group. And you have to become an individual that is saying no to the larger group. And that, when you get to that stage, it is very easy to view individuality as being the thing that is giving you freedom. But the thing is, it's not individualism, right? It's what that individualism then stood for, which was having the wisdom to move away from something that wasn't fitting you. So if you're someone who at one point had to use a heightened sense of individuality to escape a situation that was not serving you and was forcing you to be inauthentic and like almost lying to yourself, it can be easy to fall into that trap of thinking that that individuality is what's going to get you through most situations, or that anytime you feel any amount of like authority or any amount of like constriction or restriction, or just feeling like the walls are closing in on you, it might be almost like muscle memory to be like, okay, I just need to cut everything out. I just need to be, every man for himself. I'm gonna go and do my own thing, and I need to cut everyone off and be free. But you need to kind of remind yourself that you are out of that situation, and there are different ways to deal with different problems, because each problem is different and each problem requires a solution that is very specific. And you're doing it, you are getting the wisdom you need to deal with those problems and to deal with those situations. But sometimes our body takes over, and our body tells us to do what it thinks will keep us the safest, or what it thinks works already. And that's why like you're gonna have these places where you kind of veer off the path that you're going on, and those are merely opportunities for you to come back to your path and find your path, and come back to a place where you're acting not out of fear or not out of this need for survival, but rather because you're connected to this inherent nature that you have, which is one of being inquisitive and wishing to learn more things. I feel like hunger is like a big part of who you are. You're somebody that really likes to learn. You're somebody that wants to know and understand things. And here's the paradox with being a person like that. You're going to feel like things never make sense. And you're going to feel like right when you're close to figuring out the answer, that the answer eludes you. But that's what this process is all about. That at the end of the day, it's going to make sense. And when I say at the end of the day, I don't mean literally like when you're saying goodbye to this 3D world. I mean that there's going to be periods where it just clicks and it makes so much sense, and then the next second it's gone again. And I think you're going to have to really like revel in those moments and realize that like it's okay to like lose the answer or to forget the answer, because the point isn't to keep the answer contained within us. The point is to just let things flow, because it is what it is. There is no good or bad. You're not going to get reprimanded for having the answer flow through your fingers. and you're not going to get rewarded for having the answer in your hands all the time. What is going to happen is that you're going to go through life the way that it's meant to, the way that it's meant to unfold, and the only thing you can do is be open to new knowledge, be open to new wisdom, be open to people that you've lost coming back, and be open to people that you didn't connect with coming back and teaching you things. Be open to people that you don't even expect teaching you anything, teaching you something. So this is kind of personal, but I had a friend that passed away some years ago, and she was very young when she passed away, and she couldn't really do a lot of the things that, you know, she would be super excited about doing, that we used to talk about. So whenever I kind of see a place that I know that she would have liked, or do something that she would have liked, it's like I keep her with me, and how through my experience I wish for her to experience the same thing. And it could be the same for you, where you sort of keep people close to your heart like that. And this is like a very specific and personal example, but I feel like there's so many different ways to sort of apply this. And I think this has to sort of do with, you know, how like this kind of advice about being more open to people coming back, and, you know, just like reconnecting with people and rediscovering relationships. So even when that really hasn't happened, you can like kind of keep them close to you. So it could be such a simple thing as reflecting on even the shortest relationships, like even the shortest friendships. Like maybe you met somebody for coffee once and you laughed like you've never laughed before, and then you never saw them again, like because it just didn't happen, the schedules didn't line up, and over time you just didn't really think about it. Could be again like that friend from a cruise ship or something. So think about them, like think about the joy that they gave you, and when you experience something that reminds you of them, allow yourself to kind of revel in that experience. And maybe you could even like sort of reach out to them yourself, and be like, hey, like I saw this reminded me of you, and kind of give them that space to come back into your life, and just sort of let it flow from there. I know this kind of like went, like we really moved up from the cards, I feel, and this is really like how I prefer to do readings. But yes, I want to take like just, I have this like tiny deck that I made of like oracle cards by myself like some years ago, and I want to take just like a couple more cards just to wrap this up and like, you know, give us like a nice ending point, like a final chapter of sorts. Okay, so we have this color card of pink. I'm gonna put that there. And then we have, ooh, okay, lots, but this one came open. So we have yellow. So pink is immediately making me go back to that kind of friend on a cruise ship example for some reason, because it makes me think of just youth, specifically like also like girlhood, and but youth in general, because this is like ungendered reading, but also specifically it's making me think of like the kind of reflection, like not reflection, like how this kind of shape mirrors into the shape here of this rainbow coming through, and that's again making me think of just like this kind of the vibrancy that wisdom brings. I feel like I don't know if this is just me, but like whenever I like think of wisdom, I think of like somebody in this like old robe with like gray hair and kind of just like colorless. But wisdom doesn't necessarily have to take on that kind of form of being drier. Wisdom most often brightens things up. Wisdom is light. And it's specifically making me think of how you are this prism through which this bright light of wisdom is passing through, and then yourself is then reflecting this white light into this vivid rainbow of colors. And how it's again like this new perspective. We talked about new perspective, right? Yeah, we did. How like that wisdom is allowing you to see your life with brighter colors. And it's almost like this kind of like it is what it is mindset is. Okay, I know we like a lot of us like say it is what it is in this kind of jokey fun way, but imagine that sort of settling into your being, with this gravity that makes you feel so much lighter, like you've really accepted and made peace with all these different parts of life and all your different experiences. And your peace of mind then allows you to just enjoy life as it goes, like as it unfolds. And because you're no longer stuck in this place of wanting to fix things or wanting to better things or just changing anything, because you're just taking everything as it comes and releasing it as it goes. And that's it, you're just focusing on enjoying life then. Yeah, like yellow again, like every time I get yellow it makes me think of like the sense of self, and like, you know, the solar plexus chakra. And I am again, that's making me think of like that is mindset. And what I mean by the is mindset is just believing that things just are, you know. So that's how you're kind of viewing yourself as well, like I just am and things just are. And I just want to take, you know, I just want to experience what is, and that's all there is to it, you know. It's just like such a lovely energy, but it's so powerful and it's so interesting because it takes like a lot of depth to get to this lightness. And that sounds like a paradox, and that's because it is, because peace of mind comes with being able to release the need to fix paradoxes, and it comes with understanding polarity and being able to just hold polarity in your hand, not in like this kind of contained sense, but just like you're able to contend with things being on polar opposites. You're able to contend with things sometimes contradicting each other. You're able to contend with how life sometimes just does not make sense, and that's just the way it is. This is such a lovely energy, and I could literally talk about it all day, but I don't think that's gonna have no purpose at all. I hope you were able to kind of understand this reading. I feel like I would like to do this kind of spread again and talk about alchemy again in one of my other readings later on. But since this was my first time contending with like a pretty big concept, I was kind of like worried if I would kind of be able to put it across well. So I hope you were able to get what you needed from this reading. But that's like, yeah, that's where I'm gonna end it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for letting me read for you. Like the video if you liked it. Comment down below what you think. What do you think of alchemy? What do you think of your life? What do you think of the reading? Literally whatever thoughts you have, I would love to know. Subscribe if you'd like to see more readings from me. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Hi Paltos! This is for those of you that chose this Scolecite tumble crystal. I'm gonna put that there and let's get into your reading. So we're gonna start off with what you are alchemizing. So basically, what is the result of this alchemical process that you are kind of going through? And for that we have lightning. You can see the card. And then for the materials going into this process, the materials could be literally anything. It could be your experiences, your will, literal objects. Like, we're going to keep it pretty open there. So for that we have darkening melanosis. This is already super interesting because these cards literally go one after the other. Okay, then we have one more card which we're going to look into, like, what is the purpose of this entire process, like why is this process taking place. And for that we have the Two of Swords, or peace. This is a Thoth tarot. you might be knowing. And then finally I took 2 additional cards just for some more insight and some more like confirmation and stuff like that. So for that we have the 5 of Wands, and should I put that there? Yeah, that's fine. And the 5 of Swords. Okay, super interesting. Actually, wow, like I see like a lot of kind of things going on here which seem very kind of coincidental, but you know, nothing's a coincidence in this world. But first off, yeah, like the very fact that we have Darkening, which is number 12 in the Alchemy deck, and then we have Lightning, which is number 13, and then we have 2 5s right here, and then we have 2, so that makes me think of like 1 2, like 1 2 and then 2. Also like the Roman numeral for 5, which is like a V, and then we have these 2 kind of the symbol here, which makes me think of like 2 V's going together. I think that is super interesting. Yeah, let's get into it. So honestly, like the first thing that is calling out to me is the fact that these 2 cards go after like one after the other, because we have 12 and then 13, and that's making me think of how this alchemical process for you is something that's very step by step. And specifically what I'm hearing is that for you this process is one where you feel like you're doing something by the book of sorts. And we're gonna go more into that a bit later, but I just want to look first at this Darkening card. So immediately what I'm seeing with this card right here is shadow work, and I don't mean in the general sense of like, oh, like you're gonna need to do shadow work for this alchemical process. What I'm actually seeing is that you guys are people that have already started this alchemical process. Like you have already started out on your spiritual path. You have, I mean, of course, like I think like it's safe to sort of presume that you guys are into spirituality since you're here watching a tarot reading, and specifically one where we're talking about alchemy. But I think you might have been using like shadow work as a practice, and I think that's what this card is sort of pointing to. In this card, we have this kind of snake kind of piled in the bottom, and that's kind of catching my eye, and it's making me think of somebody like opening this really old trunk of stuff that they just found in their house, and when they open it up they find like all these old clothes. Like I don't, that's like a very specific image, but yeah, like you know, these like really old fabrics, really old styles of clothes, really old patterns, and you know, you're just taking these clothes out and you're dusting them off. Like that's what this card is giving me the vibe of. And what that means is that you've already started digging, you've already started this process. Like suppose you're like kind of emptying out your basement or your attic, or you're just like looking through all your old stuff. You've started, and if you've already started, I think like you guys might already be familiar with what shadow work means. But just in case you're not already familiar with that, shadow work is basically this concept that was coined by Carl Jung, and to put it simply, it's like the aspect of ourselves that is hidden away from like our conscious kind of interaction with the world, and it's filled with like, our shadow is kind of filled with all these things that over time we've just pushed there, things that were like, that we deemed undesirable, things that we deemed messy or difficult to deal with or painful. It's all there, like everything that we just did not want to deal with our conscious minds, it's there in the shadow. And shadow work is this process of bringing all this to the surface, because what is considered healthy is to face every aspect of ourselves and to sort of have nothing to hide from ourselves. And you know, you kind of get rid of like triggers, and you bring up old wounds, and then you get to work on them and things like that. With these 2 like triangles here, with these like upward triangles, I'm always like kind of confused when it comes to like the symbology for the elements. I keep getting confused whether like this is either earth or air. But interestingly enough, we have like, even though this is like 2 triangles which seem to be the same, we have this like one line going through one of them. And that's making me think of both fire and air, actually. And both fire and air are elements that talk of ascendance. And again, that's making me think of like things coming to the surface. And yeah, like look at that, like with these two cards, both of these cards here talk about conflict. It's like a conflict of wills, a conflict of interest, a conflict that is verbal or mental, and internal conflict. Like you could like name it and it's sort of here, you know. And all these different conflicts are then being brought to the surface. And what I'm getting exactly is that, okay, how do I put this? I feel like sometimes when we work on ourselves spiritually, it's hard to know where to go, you know, because we don't know exactly what we're doing. Because anybody that's had a spiritual awakening, it's kind of this chaotic transformation that you're like just thrust into, and it's difficult to sort of navigate. Like over time the path gets clearer, but when you're just starting out, it's hazy and it's not easy to see. It's like you're walking and it's like dark and you don't exactly know like what the path even looks like. And I'm not saying that you guys are new to this, because I don't feel like you guys are new, but I feel like transformations are plenty. So I feel like even though you might have navigated earlier transformations with dexterity, right now you're in this phase where you don't exactly know what to do next. And I think that might be throwing you for a bit of a loop. And okay, so with this lightning card, it might almost seem like the perfect outcome to this alchemical process, because you're going from like dark to light. But I remember reading in like the guidebook, and Kim Krans, she talks about how like we often like think of, you know, how, I mean, she doesn't say this, but like we think of the dark as being this thing that we need to move away from. But Kim Krans says that like the dark coming out is actually like a good sign, because you're bringing all that stuff out. It's showing that you're not afraid to get muddy and dirty and to just contend with things that are scary or undesirable. And then we go into lightning, which is technically, like colloquially, we think of it as like the good, you know, you're moving from the dark to the light. You're moving from the shadows to brightness, you know, that kind of thing. But immediately what I'm getting when I think of this is how, like, okay, how do I say this? Like, I'm not very good with chemistry. I left chemistry like quite some years ago. Like, I left it in like my second year of high school. But I know that there's like some kind of metals or something, and when they sort of interact with their environment, like, you know, they either oxidize or something, and they kind of have this like white film over them of like just like things calcifying. It's like kind of easy to kind of run into this in water taps at home sometimes. If like the water has certain like hardness to it, then over time the tap will have a buildup of like white, just, I don't know what that stuff is called, but yeah, you have to like clean that stuff, and it's just like kind of residue of like minerals, extra minerals that are in the water that are making the water hard. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. And that's what's interesting here, because this is not following the typical sense of moving from darkness to light, even though this is the material and this is the result. Because what I'm seeing with this calcification vibe, like look at this crack here, that again is giving me this sign of like rigidity. And I think that kind of comes back to how initially I said a little bit about how this feels like a step-by-step process. And I think this is coming through because you are a seasoned spiritual person, or like you have had like prior experience. Like by seasoned, I just mean that you have been working on yourself spiritually for some time now. It could be 6 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. Like you are not a newbie anymore, and you know enough, and you have gone through enough transformations. And interestingly enough, that might be what is hindering you in this alchemical process, because you're going very step by step here. So suppose like if shadow work is your practice of choice when it comes to spiritual work. You're doing the same old thing. Like, you are bringing out what needs to be brought out, and based on your past experiences, you're deciding what to do with this transformation. And I think that's taken it way too step by step. Like, I think with this lightning card here, it's almost like a sign that you need to be unafraid to switch things up. Like, even though you have formed a practice that has worked with time, don't fall into this trap of trying to be too perfect or trying to stick to what works, because that's the thing with spirituality. Like, it is so inherently personal, and it is so dynamic as a work that there is no one formula. Like, as many spiritual people as there will be that many methods at the very least. And each individual person also possesses so many different kinds of transformations, and the knowledge then grows and changes over time. And I feel like this is like a sign for you to sort of be okay with letting go. And not every bit of shadow work is about bringing the shadow to light. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to, oh yeah, like, okay, so alchemy is this practice of, like, technically you're purifying a certain metal and making it gold. You're removing the impurities and you're making it the one ideal metal, right? And I feel like if we get stuck in this process of trying to make gold, we're gonna get real stuck, and it's not going to work because our hands are just too tight on the wheel. And this is such, like, I feel it in my body, like, this message here. And I think that's what might also cause this kind of struggle here with these two cards, specifically like this Five of Wands, because it feels like you're doing all the right things, but I think there's a part of you that knows that something needs to change. And look at this, like, we have this, like, I don't know if it's a crow or a raven. I'm not very good at identifying words, and I don't think I've ever seen a raven. I've only seen crows. But yeah, like, has anybody seen a raven? I'm going on a tangent. But you see how this bird is here, and this bird is looking in a different direction. Like, when we place these cards this way, this card is the result, but this bird is looking elsewhere, and this bird is looking towards, oh my god, it's looking towards the Two of Swords, which is peace. So, okay, oh my god, this makes so much freaking sense. We have this Two of Swords card here, and with peace, this is making me think of peace of mind. It's making me think of, I don't know why, like, I'm just thinking of peace of mind for some reason. I think it's because, like, we have the word peace here, and swords technically have to do with words, thoughts, intellect, and it's making me think of, like, mind, right? So we have peace of mind, and specifically in a time when you sort of feel drawn in two different directions, and it's about being able to sort of reconcile those two things, which is in itself an alchemical process, right? To be able to bring two dualities together to create something in the end. That's what the materials are for, right? You're creating one result. But oh my god, this is actually so, I am so excited right now, so I might be kind of rambling in different directions, but stick with me. So in the guidebook to this alchemy deck, Kim Krans talks about the different parts of the alchemical process. And yeah, I'm just gonna pull it out right here. So she says, like, alchemy, the alchemist, the work, the laboratory, the starting point, and the goal. And particularly, I want to kind of draw focus to what she says about the goal. So the goal is technically this, right? Oh, wow, I just spun the cards. But yeah, we think the goal is this, the result, the final end result that we're left with. Maybe it's gold, maybe it's whatever result we have in mind that we think is gonna happen if we put in the materials. But Kim Krans says that we need to remember that the goal is often the work itself. And a big part of who the alchemist even is just the fact that they can notice things around them. And I feel like this bird right here is looking at this card because they're realizing that the purpose, this card was about the purpose, right? So this card, that the purpose is more important than the work. So right now, the alchemical process that you're kind of undergoing, this almost seems like this kind of cautionary, sounds like a little scary to me, but just like it's redirection. Think of this reading as redirection, and it's telling you that don't get too hung up on the outcome of this. Like if you're doing shadow work, don't think of how you're doing the shadow work to achieve a certain result, because then you might be falling into this trap of limiting what your spiritual work can give you. Because here's the thing, like when we do spiritual work, we often end up becoming a version that is greater and has a larger understanding of things, and just I feel like we become like this expanded energy. Like our energy expands, our perspective expands, everything about us sort of just grows. Like we become bigger. And I think if like when we try to sort of come into spiritual work with a preconceived result, we are limiting what we can be. Because right now, if I suppose like my energy is like this, so I can only imagine something that is this much, right? But what if the point of the spiritual work is to make me this, right? So how can something that's this imagine something that's this? You know what I'm talking about here? I think you get what I'm saying. So don't fall into this trap of making sure you have an outcome. You don't need to go that step by step for this alchemical process. Be open to the work itself. Like do the shadow work for the joy of doing the shadow work, and because it's just something that you feel drawn to doing. And that's going to give you so much more peace of mind, because if you try to limit yourself, your spiritual work already gets limited, because you're cutting away things. Like you're already sort of putting a boundary around what you expect yourself to end up being. And if you put a boundary around it, how can you grow beyond that boundary, you know? And ooh, sorry. But yeah, like this is a cute little dried flower. I like doing that. I don't know why I felt drawn to kind of calling attention to that, but I guess that's like a good sort of thing. Like maybe you guys are into like preserving flowers and petals, like in that way, and somehow that seems like a very nice example. Like slow down with it, you know, pick a hobby that like really makes you use like your hands and your senses. Don't get too in your head about your spiritual practice. Don't get too in your head about what you want your spiritual practice to end up giving you, because yeah, then you're gonna be shutting away so much of what you can actually end up being. And I think this is a sign for you to sort of focus on the true purpose of this entire alchemical process. Like sit down and ask yourself, like, what is it that asked me to start this spiritual journey? Like really like look back to when this all started, you know? It could be that you find like a very clear point, like, oh, like this was what started my spiritual journey. Or you could even like end up going further beyond and seeing how your spiritual work started way before you even had the vocabulary to talk about it. But I think like you're being asked to sort of reflect on that. Reflect on what drew you into this space, what drew you into having these kinds of experiences and thinking about life in this way. And I think like when you go back to that, that's going to give you like a lot of the answers that are going to help you break out of this mold of structuring and constraining your spiritual work. The Two of Swords is also making me think of like this conflict within yourself again, because like look at the way these swords are placed, you know, they're placed like at each other's blades, and that's making me think of this like all over again. Like why is it that you're sort of fighting with yourself? Because I think there's definitely like a part of you that sort of understands that something needs to be different, and but there's like a part of you that is like falling back into these patterns of muscle memory and of fear, because like, okay, why do we stick to like routine? Why do we stick to a certain way of doing things? It's because we're scared. We are scared because we don't know what lies beyond this field of control. We don't know what happens when things go haywire. And here's the thing, like you've already navigated chaos, you've already navigated transformation. Like your first spiritual transformation was already chaotic, and then you didn't even have like any preconceived notions of what you wanted that to go like. Oftentimes our first spiritual transformation doesn't even happen with us fully aware that it's kind of coming on, right? And you still got there, like you got out of that. And it's interesting because you liked the outcome of that spiritual transformation so much that you chose to then make it a rule for your next spiritual transformation. You chose to make it a guide, or like, yeah, like just like a rule book or something that told you like, okay, so this led to such a positive result, let me do this again. Or when this comes up again, let me follow the same exact steps. So you liked the result, and you liked so you need to think about how what you liked the result of was something you did without a rule book, was something you did without the knowledge that you have now. So remind yourself of like how you actually felt in that space, and how that confusion actually sort of helped propel you. Kim Krans, in like the interpretation for this card, she also talks about, she says this one thing about like how we shouldn't be afraid to get our hands dirty. And I think like feeling lost or feeling confused, okay, so like I think what I think is that getting our hands dirty right now to me is coming across as a metaphor for feeling lost and confused. Like sometimes we are so afraid of feeling lost and confused that we create like these very rigid paths for ourselves to follow. But the thing is, you've done this before. You've gone without a path, and you've conquered that. You've come out feeling great, and that means that you're fully capable of handling this again. So remind yourself of that space. Remind yourself that the point isn't to get to a certain outcome. Like that what you liked about your first spiritual transformation wasn't the outcome, but the fact that you could just kind of go wherever you pleased, and it would, I don't know, it would like lead you to a better place anyway. That's what I'm sort of hearing. Like, don't be afraid. Like, you're going to a better place anyway. Like, you are going to come out of this entire process feeling so much better, so much lighter. So that's what, there is this like kind of potential for things to be lighter, but as long as you don't overdo it, as long as you don't put these boundaries on yourself, as long as you don't hinder your path, as long as you don't I feel like there's like a lot of don'ts here, but I don't want it to again feel so rigid. Like I feel like this energy of this calcified energy of this card is almost like coming over me as I'm talking. So it's like, oh, don't do this, and I feel like that's another thing that I technically shouldn't be doing, because okay, let me just find like a better way to word this. Reflect more, open yourself up to why you even started enjoying your spiritual practice. Yeah, do something that you really enjoy. Also, like the way that I kept saying conflict of interest, now the word interest is really like kind of drawing me, and like do something you're interested in. I feel like don't let there be like this conflict. Like don't hold yourself back from doing things just for the sake of fun, because okay, I'm getting this like very specific image of like somebody who's like doing shadow work, right? So they're like having this time like, oh, I'm gonna sit down now and I'm gonna do shadow work and I'm gonna journal and I'm gonna meditate. But then when it comes to that time in the day, they're like, I just wanna draw, or I just want to play with my pet, or I just, like you feel like doing these fun things. Like, yeah, there's like this conflict of interest, like you feel like you want to do different things, but because like the past version of you set this particular time, like, oh, we need to sit down and do this, you're forcing yourself to then do your shadow work. What I'm hearing is that just let yourself be in those times. Like, if you don't feel like sitting down and journaling and meditating, don't do that, because everything in this world and in this life is spiritual and has the potential of being spiritual, as long as you notice. That's what the alchemist is for. The alchemist is somebody who notices. So maybe you're feeling drawn to enjoying something that you otherwise think is frivolous, because there is knowledge for you there, there is wisdom for you there. And by this, I don't mean that you go into every experience thinking, oh, what did I learn from this, or what can I learn from this, or what did I get out of this. No, don't go into it like that. Rather, just let yourself be, like, kind of cut back on the doing, set free the being. I kind of felt really corny saying that, but yeah, like, that's what I'm hearing. Like, you have no need to hold yourself back from doing things that you actually enjoy. Do things that you feel drawn to doing. Do things that you want to do, like play with your pet, sing even if you don't like sing, even if you're not good at singing. If you want to sit and play in the sand, sit and play in the sand. You're gonna go to like a place that is better anyway, so might as well enjoy the journey. Like, don't force yourself into it. In fact, you forcing yourself into it might just dim the brightness of that place. Yeah, that's what I'm sort of seeing. And I also want to take just a couple of extra cards from this tiny little oracle deck that I made myself some years ago, just to get some final words to close this reading. Sometimes I feel like I close my readings very abruptly, because it just feels like, oh, the message has just stopped, like the end. But I would like to kind of give you a little, a slow slide instead of a drop. So yeah, let's just get some last words of insight, advice, wisdom for pile number 2. We have look deeper. Yeah, exactly. Look deeper into why you even started this entire process. And sometimes looking deeper, look at this imagery here that I drew years ago. I'm not the best at drawing, but it's like a well, and it's making me think of interacting with the well in a way that is just more carefree. Don't make your interaction with the well purely about, okay, I need to get water, but just sit by the well, look into it, look into your reflection, listen to the trees, look at the reflection of the sky and the birds, just really enjoy that time. And what that basically means is just allow yourself to enjoy things and allow yourself to reflect, and make it a fun, nice, peaceful reflection. Not everything needs to be journal, not everything needs to be written down. Sometimes you just need to sit under a tree and watch some people catch with their dog, or I don't know, just watch the leaves fall because it's autumn, or watch the flowers grow because it's spring, or literally do whatever. Do something very easy and something that doesn't really require effort from you, and that might be where the answers are waiting. Ooh, I was gonna pull another card, but then a firework just went off, and I was literally in two minds myself. I was should I get another card or not? And then the firework went off, and I was I think this is where I'm supposed to leave it. So yes, this is where I'm gonna leave you guys, my pile 2s. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for letting me read for you. This is a good energy overall, you guys. Don't get too scared with the conflict cards and with all the do's and don'ts of it all. Honestly, if I had to TLDR this, I would say, set yourself free, do what you enjoy, and spend time doing things that you find fun and that you have no reason for doing. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for letting me read for you. If you like the video, go ahead and like it and comment down below what you think, like literally whatever you think. I would love to know. And subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Yeah, that's it for me. Bye. Hi Pile 3s. This is for those of you that chose this citrine crystal. I'm going to put that there and let's get into your cards. So yes, for what you are alchemizing, the result, the outcome, we have Chiron. And for the materials going into this could be anything. It could be your will, your experiences, like objects that are significant. We're keeping this super open. So yeah, the materials, we have separation. Okay. And then I have one more card which we're gonna be making, like, which is designated for the purpose of this alchemical process. And for that we have the Princess of Discs. This is from the Thoth Tarot, which is often a staple in tarot communities, I feel. And then I have two more cards, which are just going to offer us some general insight into this entire situation. So for those we have the Hanged Man and the, what's this? The Nine of Pentacles in reverse. Okay, so interesting story. Like when I was shuffling your cards out, so the order I did it in is the exact order that I kind of read the cards out in. And so I also like see the cards like before I do my readings, because like that's just like the way that I process it. I just like look at them and then I put them what's it called, backside up. And yeah, so like when I was shuffling, this card fell out, Princess of Discs, and I was like, I don't know why, but that's reminding me of the Nine of Pentacles. And then the Nine of Pentacles actually fell out. So that was very interesting. It felt like confirmation that we're on the right track. So yes, let's get into it. What I'm sort of seeing immediately is, okay, just the general like energy of all these cards. So when I was doing the readings for the other piles, there were certain cards that sort of like called to me first, or I had this like kind of system for reading them, but I was like going like this, and then these cards. And right now, like everything is kind of just sticking out to me for some reason. And I feel like that's also because we have like a lot of yellow energy here. Like we have yellow here, we have like a little bit of, can you see, like yellow here, then of course we have the yellow here, yellow, yellow, yellow. So lots of yellow here. And for some reason that's making like the entirety of the spread just kind of up to me. So that is significant. Maybe that has like a reason behind it. We'll figure. Oh, you also have like a yellow citrine crystal, so that is super fun. What I'm sort of seeing with the separation card is that one of the major elements that are going into this alchemical process for you guys is a separation. I mean, it's pretty like clear here, we have separation, but like this could be like a breakup. This could be you leaving like a job, or just like any kind of separation in life, like anything that you have sort of separated from, anything where either you walked away or both parties walked away or the other party walked away, but there's this some kind of like just split that happened, right? And I feel like that's sort of the main energy that I'm sort of seeing here. And with these two birds here going in opposite directions, I feel like it might be the case that it was two parties walking away from each other, but it could be like any one of those situations that I mentioned. And then we have this Chiron card here, and more so than like the astrological significance of Chiron right now is making me think of Percy Jackson. If you guys are into Percy Jackson, you might know that Chiron is their centaur teacher, and the fact that he's a teacher is really sticking out to me. And I don't know if you guys are like familiar with the books, but Chiron is like a centaur, and he's like very different from a typical centaur, because the typical centaurs are portrayed to be this very like sort of wild bunch, and Chiron is this like more distinguished, more low-key, calm teacher vibe. And Chiron has had like his fair share of suffering and pain, and especially like I remember like in the books they talk about like how Chiron, like he's immortal, right? And then the demigods that he's looking after are not, they're mortal. And oftentimes like it's said, like, you know, in the Percy Jackson books, that like demigods go on these dangerous quests and often they pass away because they're fighting monsters, or yeah, mostly because they're fighting monsters. And how Chiron has had to have like the very best of his students often end up not surviving for very long, just because of like the very nature of being like a demigod. And that's what this is making me think of for some reason. It's making me think of like how the outcome of this alchemical process that you're going through is a certain kind of wisdom and kindness and softness despite the pain, right? Because even in this Chiron example, like he's technically separating, then like that student that he had is like separating because of like life and death. Obviously that's like a very dramatic example because of, I mean, the like Greek mythology, but I feel like if this is something that like happened to you like in the recent past, like the separation has sort of already happened, and it's something that really kind of brought you down for like a very long time, and unbeknownst to you there was healing sort of going on underneath the surface. But now is the time for you to sort of wake up to that healing, right? It's time for you to get out there in, not even, I'm not saying like get out into the world, like have fun again. I just mean like in this general sense of like it's time for you to come back to yourself, and it's time for you to come back to yourself with the learnings that this separation brought. And I think that's what like the purpose card here, like with Princess of Discs, very recently actually I was having a conversation with this friend of mine who's also into the tarot, and we were discussing this like the Thoth tarot, and specifically like the court cards, because the court cards are named very differently from like the traditional RWS, because in the RWS we have the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. But in the Thoth tarot we have the princess, the prince, the queen, and the knight. And while we were having the discussion, we couldn't remember which order they went in, like if it was princess, knight, queen, prince, or like I know that there should technically be like an intuitive way to like sort of think of the progression the cards are in, but then if you think about it, like none of the court cards in the Thoth tarot are numbered, and I feel like that's for a reason. It's because they're sort of just energies, they're not like in a hierarchy. So typically if the Princess of Disc was a page, you would think of her as having to go through the other court cards to get to the position of the queen or the king. But right now, because these cards aren't numbered, all I see is this energy of somebody who's almost like a warrior, right? And it's making me again think back to this like Chiron energy of how like centaurs are these like kind of wild warriors, but how Chiron isn't wild, but he's still very capable of being a warrior. And that's what this is making me think of. It's so hard to pick this card up, but yeah, this person looks like a warrior, but they also seem very calm, very peaceful, and very sort of like they're just in the forest, like this like protectress energy of sorts, and they're just like humbly looking down at whatever they're looking down at, to be honest. But what that's kind of giving me the energy of is that this separation that you've had is giving you a wisdom and a tenderness that was completely unknown to you. Like you didn't even know you had this part of you that existed, you know, and that part is coming out, and it's coming out with a lot of strength, because not only are you leaving the separation with the knowledge that you can survive a separation, you're leaving it with a softness as well. And that's so interesting because technically we think of like protection as this like hard shell around us, but it's like your shell is this very soft moving energy. And the Princess of Discs right now is making me think of somebody who really has like made it with their physical surroundings, right? And what I mean by that is that there's somebody who is in harmony with their surroundings. And I think that's why, like, the minute I saw this card, I was like, that's giving me Nine of Pentacles energy. And then we have the Nine of Pentacles here, and it's in reverse, which we're gonna get to. But the Nine of Pentacles is essentially somebody who has reaped the benefits of their hard work, and now they're kind of just reveling in that, you know. And I think part of the reason why this card is reversed is that it's difficult for you to sort of contend with this new tenderness that's coming your way. And because it's unfamiliar, it's making you feel like you're sort of on this shaky footing, right? And I'm getting this like image. So, okay, suppose, let's kind of go ahead with the example that you guys like have perhaps had a breakup, and your relationship was a place where you got to express a lot of tenderness and a lot of love and kindness. And then when that relationship ended, you felt like you lost those parts of you. But now the tenderness is coming back. And when the tenderness is coming back, it feels like you're getting triggered again, because you're like, I moved past this tenderness for a reason, or oh, this tenderness is just a remnant of a memory that I had from my relationship. But that's not the point. Your tenderness is yours. Your tenderness isn't your relationships. Do you get what I'm saying here? Your love, your tenderness, your kindness, it all comes from you. So if it's coming back to you right now, it's not because your relationship or memories of your relationship are coming back, but because you're coming back to yourself. And you're realizing that you have these things regardless of whether or not you're with somebody. Yeah, like that's why like you sort of felt like you're seeing these parts of you that you didn't even know existed, because you attributed a lot of your characteristics or your traits to your relationship. So, you know how it's like oftentimes like when we go through like a breakup or even like a friendship breakup or something, we feel like we've lost out on a certain magic that the friendship or relationship had, but we figure out over time that the magic was just in us, and it was us being in that relationship that brought that magic to it, and not the other way around. Because the relationship, what is a relationship? It's just two people coming together. The relationship isn't a third entity of its own, you know? It's just two people interacting, and their interactions stem from who they individually are. So if there's magic in this in-between place, it's because you or that other person had that magic. And what I'm seeing here is that you have this magic. You had this tenderness, you had this love, you had this kindness, you had this magic. Everything that you thought was a result of your relationship is something that you had within you. And this alchemical process is showing you that. And it's coming with pain, because there's almost like this thing of like, why didn't I see this before? Like, why didn't I know that this was me all along? Or why did this part of me never come alive before this relationship happened? And I feel like it can be easy to ask these sorts of questions, but what's important to understand is that, or rather a very kind of nice way, or like a perspective, or a nice perspective of looking at life, is as if it is like a series of experiences that help us discover more of ourselves, right? And maybe you didn't explore these parts of yourself before this certain relationship because you just didn't have an outlet for that, or you didn't feel the need to bring these parts of yourself out. So as soon as there was like this place where you could show these parts of yourself, or this person that you could express this with, everything came out. And that's why it felt so like unfamiliar, and you were like, oh my god, this person makes me feel so good, because they're just bringing out all this wonderfulness. But the wonderfulness was yours to begin with. It was just a matter of like activating that. I feel like when we think of this like alchemical process, right? So we have these materials that go in, we have the result, and then we have the impurities. And I feel like now is this kind of, there's this point, like the point is to sort of understand what's what here, you know? So what's going into this? What am I getting out? And what am I discarding? And I feel like what you're sort of getting from this entire situation is this wisdom, is this tenderness, is this knowledge that you contain all this beautifulness in you. And what you're discarding are these ideas that this beautiful, gorgeous wonderfulness that is you has to or can only come across in certain situations. Because see, that's the thing, like when you activate it in a certain situation, it can be easy to think that certain parts of you only need to be shown in those situations that activated him. But that's not true. It's just that there was a certain medium that activated a part of you, and now you have that part of you to explore everything else with. And you don't have to like discard that part of you, or you don't have to hide away that part of you until you're in a similar situation. So if you have been given love and tenderness, or like rather shown your own love and tenderness, you don't need to hide that away until you're in another relationship, or unless you're with another person. You can take that beautiful, gorgeous perspective and put it on life. Like, look at this kind of energy like flowing out from these two fingers. Like, you have it, and it's on you when you want to turn it on, and you can have it on all the time. Like, you can just have that kind of mindset and have that softness in you, and gentleness and beautifulness, wonderfulness. I just say like all these words because I really feel like you guys are such like wonderful people, and I feel like it's all just like flowing, like all these kind of words. But yeah, like you can literally look at every aspect of your life in the same way. I'm kind of feeling like, oh, like girl, romanticize your life, you know? And yeah, like look at that, we have the hangman here, and the hangman talks about like a different perspective, like, and it's a perspective often brought on by pain, right? I mean, that's how I'm reading it right now, because like, look at it, like I cannot imagine like being, you know, hanging upside down being like a positive feeling, you know? But look at, like, even though this guy's upside down, he's got this like halo around him, and that's what's sort of happening to you. Like through this pain of separation, you're being shown that you have this like wonderful perspective to you that you now get to apply to literally anything in your life. And that's why you kind of, yeah, like there's somebody who's like reaping the benefits, right? So I feel like I literally have to like that right, like, you know, put that right side up, because that's what this process is about. And I think that's why like it was like upside down before, because it's like you have it all. It's just a matter of kind of flipping the switch, you know? And I think that's how I'm gonna put it like this, because this is where you want to be, this is where you currently are, and this is what the process is standing for. And that's what this kind of purpose is about. And okay, so even if we take like the meaning of the Princess of Discs to be in line with the Page of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles gives me the energy of somebody who's really interested in learning something. And like, it's somebody who, okay, I'm getting this like very specific image, so I don't know if you guys have seen like the imagery on the Page of Pentacles card. I think you might have. You can also like look it up. But it's somebody kind of looking at a coin, right? And it's somebody focusing on and just like concentrating on that coin. And right now I'm getting this like very specific image of that page, and they're like walking, and suddenly like as they're walking, a coin falls out of their pocket, and they pick it up and they like start looking at it, and they start studying it. And that's what I'm feeling like is the energy with you guys. Like the coin was in your pocket all along. So everything that you right now are currently kind of contending with and dealing with, or what the outcome of this alchemical process is something that has already been in you for this entire time. And it's just a matter of realizing that. And you can realize that by finally like kind of putting the pain of the separation and really like reflecting with it and sitting with it and working on healing from this pain, and how that's going to like open up this like doorway for you to understand that a lot of this magic and kindness and tenderness that you allocated to this relationship was something that was just yours, and that it was just a matter of activating that and then realizing that you can then take that loving, kind, tender gaze and apply it to literally anything else that you want in life. And this alchemical process is the process of you scrutinizing that, like scrutinizing these aspects of yourself and being like, wait a second, you're telling me you were like with me all along? Like you're telling me that this was just, that it was just us, like the magic was us? And you're like getting close to that magic, you're getting close to that kindness and tenderness and that lovingness in you, and you're looking at it and trying to understand like how that fits in you now that it is outside of the situation that you associated it with. Before I end this reading, I want to like just get like a card from this deck right here, which is like a handmade deck I made some years ago. So yeah, let's just get some final. Ooh, okay, we have I Don't Want to Lose You, and I'm gonna get, ooh, okay, one more card, one final card. Okay, this is literally amazing. We have this card, I almost think of it as like a blank card when I made it. It could be like a 0, it could be whatever you want it to be. But this I Don't Want to Lose You, this is so powerful, so amazing. And I think this is tied into what we said earlier about how like when this tenderness comes back to you for the first time, you think it's making you miss that person or that situation. But what you're really missing is the magic. And that's what this is all about. Like it's about you coming back to yourself and you realizing what you're saying this to, and through this alchemical process realizing that what you think is missing that person, missing that situation, or grieving that particular situation isn't actually that. It's more than that. And it's realizing that what you're missing is that energy, and that energy is yours. Like with the 0 card especially, like this makes me think of like a complete like new slate, like a blank slate, an infinite possibility. And it's making me think of like how you at the end of this alchemical process will figure out how to connect the dots between these different things in your life, like the grief and the part that is you, and how that applies to you outside of this relationship, and outside of this situation, outside of this relationship, whatever. And like how like where each piece fits, you know, like in the alchemical process, what is the material going in, what is the outcome, what is the residue, what are you leaving behind? Like you're figuring out how each piece fits together in this life, in this experience. And I know that it can be like super daunting to go through something like this, but I want to tell you guys that you can really do this. Like you are fully capable. Like this Princess of Discs energy, this 9 of Pentacles energy, this is all you. Like you are somebody incredibly strong and incredibly capable of dealing with literally whatever comes your way. And it's just a matter of allowing yourself to see how much strength you actually have and how much magic you possess. And through that, you're going to see how much magic you bring to literally every aspect of your life, not just this relationship, but everything. And when you realize that you have it, you're going to be able to turn it on literally whenever, and you're not going to have anything to miss, or you're not going to have anything to say like, oh, I'm afraid of losing you, because the part you're technically most afraid of losing is something that you cannot lose. It's you. And once you realize it's you, you're gonna lose that fear. Yeah, and citrine can often, like, I don't know why, like, citrine makes me think of, like, letting go of fear as well, because citrine makes me think of, like, a sense of self. And when you have, like, a strong sense of self, you feel way more capable of dealing with things in life leaving you, because you know you have this strong foundation that is just gonna see you through everything. And it doesn't mean that it's gonna take away the pain, because we're social creatures, we're humans, we love being together, we love our, I know, like, our culture, our society, our everything. And it's difficult to part with things, there's no doubt about it. But a lot of your fear that comes with parting from things can just flow away when you go through this alchemical process and realize that your greatest fear is about losing something that is your own thing. Yeah, I think this is where I'm gonna end this, guys. This is, like, such a great energy. Like, I'm super excited for you to get back to yourself and to find yourself all over again, and to realize that you are the magic, because yes, you are absolutely 100% the magic, and I'm so excited for you to explore that part of you. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for letting me read for you. It's been a joy. Like the video if you liked it. Comment down below what you think. Even if you have any questions, whatever you would think, I would love to know. And subscribe if you'd like to see more videos from me. Thank you again, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!